Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Big Apple Hockey. It is a little bit later in the week than we normally do. We usually like to do Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock. But as many of you have been following me on social media, you'll know that is not the case. I'll get into more of that in a minute. Usually, I would introduce myself first, but I am going to introduce my co-host, Mr. Anthony LaRocco, first.
How's it going, Mark? Glad to be back at it. A lot of action coming. Trade deadline 2 weeks from today. Islanders and Rangers kind of going in different directions right now. So a lot to talk about. I'm excited, but I'll hand the floor off to you for what you have to say.
Yeah, because today I'm with a heavy heart, and I'm dedicating today's show to a great man who I've known for many years in life, Bob Williams, who passed Wednesday afternoon. He always wanted all of us to go for our dreams and also to be practical, and that's what we did. There's too many things to sum up my father with, so I'm just gonna get right onto the show. We could talk about it all a different time, and let's get to, because we have a lot to do. And by the way, I do want to say this. I had this ready. I am going to do a shot on air from my father. Yeah, because it wouldn't be me if I didn't pay tribute with a quick shot of whiskey. Anthony, let's get into a lot of what happened this week. Of course, we're going to the A block, which is powered by Seat Geek, and you use the promo code BigAppleHockey for $20 off your first order. Check out the final buzzer. Phil might be doing a special today. We had a great time at MetLife Stadium. I want to say thanks first off to Ranger Central, Ice Cold Takes, and Statboy Stevens for all coming down. I would have said thank you to the man to the left, but he was working. He was up in the press box. Anthony, what was that like? Your first NHL event, not your first NHL game, but your first NHL event being up in the press box.
Well, first, Mark, now that you kind of announced to everybody, I just wanted to say, my deepest condolences for your loss and to your family. I never had the pleasure of meeting your dad, but from how you are, I could tell you he did a hell of a job. He'd be proud of you, and just remember that he'll live on forever inside you. And as someone who lost my mom 2 years, it'll be 2 years in April. Not gonna lie to you, it's still gonna hurt even 2 years from now. But at least take solace in the fact that they're always watching you. So just wanted to say that first before I get into anything further.
Well, first, thank you, Anthony, because that's what we're all gonna have to do. And for everybody watching right now, call your parents. That's what I've been telling everybody all week. Just call your dad. You never know when the last time is. And the first thing, Anthony, I will say this before I turn it back over to you to get your experience working this week, because it was work. It was work for you. But and it's lovely to say that it's work, because when that's your work, that's good. But I am very thankful my father got to meet my wife to be, not my fiance, my wife to be. He was more than delighted at the woman that I brought to tell him that. And I do selfishly wish he was able to be there in November when I'm getting married. And you know what? It's not happening, but you know something, Ant? It's sort of, that's just life. And you have to cherish all the time you ever have with anybody right away.
Yep.
So that's always what it is. It may not ever seem like there were those days. You're like, oh, there's throwaway days. And when you look back at it, you go, no, there aren't. There aren't. And I will be paying a final tribute to him on March 6th, when we're going to be in Arizona for that. So, yeah.
Okay.
But Anthony, what was it like being up in the press box, being with meeting Gary Bettman and seeing all the higher ups in organizations?
Yeah, no, it was really cool. It was special. It was a dream come true to be up there with the press box with a credential with the guys from the fourth period. So thank you to them for getting one for me. I really appreciate that because they could have easily said no, but made me feel a part of the team since I joined, and it was special to be there. But yeah, I was on the radio on the hot stove with them at 1:30, and we had we had Islanders owner John Ledecky on, which is really cool. Got to meet him. Then we had Gary Bettman, as you just noted. So that was really cool seeing him. And then just the overall experience of it, and walking around the press box and seeing people in the media like Arthur Staple and Andrew Gross. I saw Eddie Olczyk and George Paros. So yeah, it was. I even saw Lou Lamoriello walking around. He was like 5 feet from me. And I was gonna go up to him, talk to him, introduce myself, but he was in conversation with someone else that he was walking with. So I'm like, he's in conversation. I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, so I saw him too. But overall, it was a great experience. For my first, taking my first NHL event was with Philk when we were part of sports on the go when we did the NHL draft in Dallas in 2018. But this was a different feel. Felt more of like an arrival for me. Yeah, and it was really cool. So I really enjoyed it.
Well, first things first, I was ignorant to that. I thought, you know what? I forgot all about off the post and sports on
Yeah,
arrival. And I'm sitting there going, well, this is part of Big Apple Hockey now. That's the only thing that matters to
yeah,
me. So my
yeah.
apologies with
So
that.
no, it was cool, and watching the game in the press boxes, you have to keep in mind, which I had no problem doing, but like when the Islanders scored or the Rangers scored, there was no reaction for me. You wouldn't
Mhm.
know, which team I liked. And I think, that's important once you're part of the media and press, that you have to put those, allegiances aside and just kind of take in the game. So that's what I did. And, I really enjoyed it. And after the game, I went to the Islanders locker room. I was part of the interviews with Barzell, Nelson, Cizikas, and then in the interview room, Patrick Waugh, and I stayed for Zibanejad and Panarin's media availability too. So it was cool to be there and be around everybody. So I really enjoyed it. And again, hopefully, can do an event again soon, whenever that is. But yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Well, Anthony, I got to tell you, as a former trained actor and as well as a bartender that used to deal with celebrities, like you just do your job, and that's what it is, and that's what the great part is about what you were able to do, because they always say no cheering in the press box, and I'm pretty sure
Nope.
even though the let's say the 14-year-old kid in you wants to scream out yeah, and then scream out mf, but it's but you know what? Yeah, I also have to wait for it all play out, wait for all the story, and there was a lot of story that had to go with that. So let me just say this. Let's first go with usually we'll go with the Rangers narrative first, which is the Rangers 3-0 last week. Sorry, actually they're 4-0 if we include the Devils game, but they're at 79 points. 18th comeback win this season. Then the Islanders blowing a third period lead. Sorry, we'll get more into that in a minute. Because, by the way, Anthony, that's perplexing to me that the Islanders keep blowing these third period leads. We'll get into that in the Islanders section on this. But Rangers right now on a 9-game winning streak. After the Stadium Series game, they had wins over Western favorite Dallas and the New Jersey Devils. Anthony, in your opinion, are the Rangers back among the NHL's best teams?
I mean, the streak they're on right now, you certainly have to put them up there. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're already on the Panthers level, but who I think are right now far and away the best team in the East. But they're
Agreed.
certainly getting back to playing. they're certainly getting back to playing more consistent hockey. And honestly, in the East right now, it's kind of aside from Florida and if you want to include Boston, I know Toronto's got really hot recently, so maybe you want to throw them in there. But it seems like it's kind of wide open. So they certainly are getting back in that mix, closer to that discussion. We'll see what they do, tinker with the roster as the deadline's 2 weeks away from now to kind of keep this going. But right now, there's a lot that I like about their game. With that said, the Stadium Series game against the Islanders, allowing 5 goals. I mean, that's not really a recipe to for winning games. But
And in the
then
matter
again,
of the way they did it,
yeah, they still found a way to get a win. But they looked really good against Dallas. New Jersey, that was a game where the Devils had a lot of shots on goal. So if you look at kind of like the stat sheet, it can be a little misleading. But the Devils actually played a good game, and Shesterkin played a really good game. But I like the way they're playing now. It seems like they're finding a groove. And in the hockey season, as you see, Mark, there's ebbs and flows. They've looked really good for periods of time, and then they looked really bad for periods of time. And now they're starting to get back to looking really good. So we'll see if they can kind of keep that going and break the I would say break the pattern where they kind of do that up and down, and really lead some momentum here in the stretch run. But yeah, if I'm a Ranger fan, there's not really too much I'm disliking right now.
I think I have to agree with you on that. Now, look, the number one takeaway I had from the game itself, and I did have 2 slotted questions on what your takeaways is from the Stadium Series, both as a game and as an event. But we'll get to that in 1 second. My number one takeaway I thought was Shesterkin let in a couple weak goals, made up with it with some excellent play later on in the game. The Islanders were the ones that were revved up. Phil said it best in our last broadcast on how you got to be worried when you heard the Islanders bag skated by Patrick Roy, and the Islanders came out firing. I know the Rangers scored the first goal, but the Islanders were the ones that were dominating the shots on net most of the game. It was absolutely incredible. But the Rangers, look, this is what the advantage is about this game. The Rangers grinded the game out, got it down. Now, we'll get to the third period in a moment. But they grinded out the game and found a way to win the game. And you're down 5-3 after just a terrible, not the goal itself, but a terrible play that led to the goal. It hit over Brodzinski's skate, went right over to an open Alexander Romanov. He was able to put it in and make it 5-3. You're thinking this game's over. The Islanders got it. We're going to get to both sides of this in the second and the third period, Anthony. But first things first, the Rangers power play now 5th in the league again. Now, partially because of what's gone on this week, but also I think that they need their power play to be successful to make their 5-on-5 successful. And because your power play can get momentum to the rest of your game. Mika Zibanejad's starting to look like Mika Zibanejad. I've called him out myself. But you look at this, and let me ask you this. The third period, did you think the Islanders got hosed at all?
No, not really. I think they shot themselves in the foot with being undisciplined and taking penalties. Their penalty kill is the worst in the league, and that's a huge problem. And now, with that said, I don't think they got hosed, but I do think that trip on Mayfield on Lafreniere that led to the tying goal, I thought that was a little ticky tacky. I did. Um, you know, but then again, unfortunately, in that situation, the optics of it, when you get your stick near another player's feet and he goes down, chances are the referee's going to put his arm up. I think Lafreniere helped it a little bit. I did. I didn't really think it was that much, but again, Mayfield is second on the team in penalty minutes in the Islanders. He has a propensity of taking bad interference and tripping penalties all year long. He hasn't been good. And he just has to be more careful with his stick in that moment. I mean, he really does. Knowing the situation and the gravity of it, they had to be more disciplined. So no, I don't think they got hosed. Like I said, I do think it was a little ticky tacky. Even the Barzell hook that led to the goal that made it 5-4 when the Rangers pulled the goalie to make it a 6-on-4 advantage. Barzell, I don't know who the Ranger player was, but he was at the blue line, and I guess Barzell felt being at the blue line, if I hound him, I can maybe force a turnover. He got his stick up by the hands area, arm area, and they called it. Even that I thought was kind of but again, it's the same situation. When you get your stick to that level on a player, chances are the referee is going to call it. So, but it's more so being undisciplined. Undisciplined. They shot themselves in the foot, and I remember saying to myself in the press box when Mayfield took that penalty, I said tie game. Before the power play even started, I said tie game. I just knew it. The momentum. You felt the momentum. I knew it was going to happen, and lo and behold, it happened. So, no, I don't think they got. I don't think they got hosed, but I do think that you know they just they lost the game because their penalty kill is terrible, and they were undisciplined. That's really about it. And also, I'll add in Cal Clutterbuck. I think it was Clutterbuck missed the empty net from his own. If he hits that, it's game over. And there's a story narrative that plays out, and that's a whole different conversation. The Islanders haven't scored an empty net goal in over a year, which is unfathomable to me. But
Unbelievable.
if he hits the empty net there, game over. Unfortunately, he missed, and we all know what happened after that.
And it's funny you say that, Anthony, because like when we're gonna transition this a little bit to the
Thanks,
Islanders
Core.
and their story, but it's you got the Islanders who they used to be the team that would get on top first period, second period, third period, doesn't matter when, and they would just lock you down and usually lock you in your own end. Like you couldn't get out, you couldn't do anything. And you want to get a shot on net? Good luck, buddy. But now they can't even hit an empty net. I mean, Kate Zigas used to be like the king of the empty nets for a while. I used to bet him in FanDuel and DraftKings because I knew he would pick up an empty net with the Islanders. Now you're going like, well, what's going on? They can't hold leads in the third period, and I'll flash their stats right there in a second. But it's a big mystery to me. What happened to the New York Islanders between Barry Trotz and now, and there's virtually the same roster. You can even argue an upgrade in a lot of positions, including goal, Anthony. What's going on?
Um, I mean, under Barry Trotz, they had an undeniable identity, which was they were going to they were going to punch the other team in the face. You were gonna know that you were in a fight when you played the Islanders. You would have to fight for every inch of ice. They'd put you to sleep, force you into mistake. They capitalize, and that identity is gone once Barry left. Lane Lambert, in the beginning, tried to play that style, didn't work. Loosen things up to the point of there was no system anymore, and things just got away from him. Now Patrick Waugh comes in, tough spot. He's only so much he could do to, you know, basically get to learn and know all of his players and change everything from, you know, soup to nuts in a short period of time. So there is certainly a big transition period. But yeah, it's baffling to see about how good of a shutdown team they were when they had the lead to now when it's like every time they have the lead in the third period, you say to yourself, here we go again. Um, and it's happened so much this year, and we're almost in March. I think at this point, it's a mental part too. I think regardless if the players will say, they don't think about it or whatnot. I think it undeniably is that when they have a lead and another team scores and starts to ramp up the intensity, the Islanders start to play scared because they have that feeling of, here we go again. So, um, you know, they have to figure it out here. stretch run. They're trying to climb back into the playoff race. So it's something they're going to have to shore up before it's too late.
Anthony, it's kind of funny you said it because there was a comment made by John Cooper a couple weeks ago where Ranger fans were getting on Barclay Goodrow. He's got 1 goal this year. Oh, he's terrible. Can't believe he's still on this team. He's making $3.5 million. Of course, I'm rounding off all these stats because I'm doing it off the top of my head. But I think he's making more than 3.5. But John Cooper said, but when the game's on the line, that's the guy you want on the ice. Going back to the Islanders and where I'm relaying this is you can't tell me you got Ryan Pulock, you got Adam Pelech, you have Brock Nelson, JD Pajot, even Bo Horvat, and they're struggling to with a penalty kill, and you got Ilya Sorokin in that. Like, what the hell's going on? And it eventually gets it's almost like that episode of The Simpsons when they're getting shot in the sun and Homer's trying to figure everything out. But it's mind-boggling to me that this team could ever be where they are. I mean, I had a headline here where the Islanders on the roller coaster season, because you take, for instance, Tuesday night, they come back and they get a 4-1 lead, and then they give up the goals, but Pelech with the game winner, and you're all excited. And I left
4-2.
out here 4-2. Is that 4-1?
Yeah. No, it's
Okay.
4-2.
All right. Thank you for the correction. But and then you had the game against the Blues last night, which got out of hand in 32 seconds.
Yeah.
Now, but then you look at it and go, the Islanders where they are on the roller coaster, or do you think that they're only just a handful of points still out of a playoff spot?
Yeah, they're in the same boat as the Devils, and Washington now. They're all tied. They're 5 points behind Tampa Bay for the last wild card spot. And
With
the
games in
Islanders,
hand, by the way.
who? Yes, the Islanders have 2 games in hand. The Islanders play the Lightning tomorrow. So tomorrow, for sure, 100%, no doubt about it, it's a must-win if they want to get back into the playoffs race. They're playing the team they're trailing by 5 points, so they got to beat Tampa. I mean, last time they played Tampa, they smacked them 7-2. I hope that the Islanders can raise their intensity for tomorrow's game with how important it is. But yeah, it's cliche, but it's a must-win. They have to beat the Lightning tomorrow. And as I said, I said this numerous times over the last couple of weeks. They have to start to get on a roll here and win, 4 in a row or 5 in a row to get the good feelings. Because the pattern that they're doing right now is, okay, you lost against the Rangers, you came back, you beat Pittsburgh, now you lost against St. Louis. They have to stop doing with the win 1, lose 1, win 2, lose 2. They have to rattle off, at the very least 3 in a row and try to chip away here. So, I think it's a matter of, and I said this again as well. I think Patrick was the right man for the job. I think that, it's just tough for him to come in mid-season and literally change everything. If we could fast forward to next season after having a full training camp, I think that's when you're really going to see the Islanders start to kind of employ their new identity when he has time to a whole off season to really study and change things. So I think that's when you're going to see a dramatic difference. For now, it's just about trying to play as best you can just with your instincts and start to win some hockey games here. That's certainly what they need to do. And I had this discussion online with people. Trade deadline 2 weeks away. Some Islander fans don't want to hear it, but lose buying. You can't. He doubled down on the roster. It's the only path to go. There's no one. I hear people say, "Oh, they got to sell." There's no one to sell. Who you selling?
You're not
Pajot
selling
and
Brock Nelson
Palmieri
right now.
No. Yeah, and it's just they literally have no one to sell because of contracts. I mean, maybe if Pajot and Palmieri were unrestricted free agents, the year left, it's not a big deal. You retain some money because they're gone anyway. But they have years left on their contract, and the Lou's not going to retain money on any of these guys, being that they're have a year and 2 years respectively. So that's not realistic. He's gonna continue to try to add to this team, and I mean, maybe if they fall down further, maybe not the case, but he'll probably just stand pat. But if the Islanders can kind of, chip away and get to 2 points, he's going to add. It's just who it is. It's the only path that he has right now, um, and you know what, Mark, you kind of I look at it as the COVID year when the world shut down and the league stopped for COVID. The Islanders, after acquiring Pajot, they started to trend down. At the time it shut down, I think they were tied with Columbus for the last playoff spot. So things were going badly, and then shut down. They restarted, and obviously we all saw what happened. That they went to the conference final last year. The Florida Panthers looked like they're out of it. Got on a heater at the end of the year, 8th seed. What happened to them, Mark?
They got to the Stanley Cup Finals.
So that's the point that I think Lou and even the Devils feel. They feel as though all you have to do is just get in, and then anything can happen. So I think that's why I think that's what Lou Lamoriello's philosophy is right now, and his thinking is that he's got a new coach that he believes in. They have talent with Barzell and Dobson and Horvat and Nelson, Sorokin and goal. That if they could just get in, that he's confident with the style of hockey they play, that from there they can make a run. So I think that's what the philosophy is, and we'll see if the team can get closer to give him some more of a push to add. But I think that's what the plan is here going forward.
Anthony, can I just extend from your thought a little bit on that one, which
Mm-hmm.
is last year at this time, about a month early, actually, the Islanders traded for Bo Horvat. Huge trade.
Yep.
Matt Barzell gets injured 2 weeks into that trade, and there wasn't much time for them to figure out who they were. Now, they were able to coach their way through that and get to the playoffs. But everybody looked over and went, what's going on with Bo Horvat? Bo Horvat's a good player. We're able to figure that out. Look at him this year. Every Islander fan will take him yet again. Now, especially for that trade, Jesus, that trade still works out great for the Islanders. Looking at it this year, Patrick Waugh comes in midseason. I think it's a difficult thing to come in midseason anywhere, especially for your first time, and try to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. I understand everybody's going to say, hey, you know what? He's a coach. You should be able to figure it out. It's sort of like you're losing 6-3 in an Xbox game. You hit pause. I hand the controller off to you. And then it's, all right, now what? Well, either you're going to do worse or you're suddenly going to do better. Hard to say. You got to change around the lines. You got to figure out where all the lines are. Patrick Waugh's got a daunting task. I agree with you. Next year is going to be completely different. Now, with this season, they're still not out of it. Believe it or not, they're still not out of it. And they're
No,
still
if you beat if you beat Tampa tomorrow, you're 3 points out with games in hand. So, but it starts with tomorrow. They have to win. They have to win, and this was I appreciate Alon. He's always on here, but this is what I was saying before, that some Islander fans don't realize. There is nothing to sell. No one is taking Pajot or Palmieri right now, because the Islanders aren't going to retain on them. They got years left. Mayfield and Engvall have 6 years left in their deal. No one's taking them.
done. Nobody's taking them.
Martin, Clutterbuck, Fashing, all these guys, Aho, they have next to no value. No, so there's literally no one. There's one person to sell, and that is Brock Nelson, and that's simply not happening when you're within shouting distance of a playoff spot. So it's right or wrong, yes. If the Islanders put Brock Nelson on the market right now, you'd have 31 other general managers knocking on the door and be like, I want this guy. But
yeah,
he
and matter of
has
fact,
a ton of value.
Lou would get back in line.
He would bring back a lot in a trade, but it's not going to happen. We need to stop talking about it. Lou, that's not Lou's philosophy. I'll put it this way, Mark. The COVID year where they missed the playoffs, they were much further out of a playoff spot come the deadline. It wasn't even possible.
Yep.
And he still didn't sell anybody. So for the Islander fans saying, "Oh, they should trade Nelson," it's not going to happen. Just stop. It's not
No.
going to happen. Again, right or wrong, it's not going to happen. They're within
More
shouting distance of a playoff spot. He still feels that he's a guy that could contribute next year in a retool. He's not going anywhere. And I don't know if David's being facetious, but
Well, yeah.
that's
Well,
certainly not. But Horvat and Barzal just signed 8-year extensions. The option's elite. He's not going anywhere.
he's
But
definitely
those are the
being
guys.
facetious.
It's not happening.
Well, especially now
But
that you finally got Matt Barzal back to what Matt Barzal you want him to
be right
be.
back.
All right, I'll be right here. I'll kill 2 seconds. But now you got Matt Barzal back to what you want him to be, and you have Bo Horvat locked in. Bo Horvat's turned in a very good season. Got to go with that. And the real conundrum is, and I wrote about this, of Brock Nelson. Which, do you give up on him? Lou is not going to do that right now. Lou would come to that decision in the offseason, and that's a conundrum in itself because Brock Nelson's going to be, I believe, 33 when he signs his next contract. If he feels like he's an $8 million center that can get, if there's a team that's going to offer him $8 million for 7 years, the Islanders might have to decline. That's just that simple. I mean, and Brock Nelson's a hell of a center. We would take him on any team, including any Ranger fan that wants to say it, and any Devils fan for that matter. Imagine the Devils with Brock Nelson as your third line center. Yikes. But it's just, and for that matter, the New York Rangers with the Brock Nelson as third line center. It's just one of those things that it's going to happen, and well, they're going to have to make a decision when I say it's going to happen. I think the Islanders end up extending him in the end. Brock has taken too many pay cuts for the Islanders, and this is also why you would doubt for that a little bit when you're taking team discounts. Let's check a couple of comments right over here while waiting for Anthony to get in. I want Nelson to sign with the Rangers. That's what Joe Train is saying. Anthony, what's your opinion on Patrick Waugh pulling the goalie? 10 minutes left last night. Are you on board with his strategy that he implemented in Colorado? Well, you know what? And David, I knew you were being purposely over the top. You know what? Here's the thing about what Patrick Waugh is doing with that. If you're doing it with 10 minutes left, you're down by 3 goals. Why not do it earlier? The NHL had this philosophy for years until Patrick Waugh that, you know what? Pull the goalie 3 minutes left, maybe less than that. I mean, hell, everybody remembers playing NHL on the Genesis, and they wouldn't pull the goalie until maybe a minute left. Maybe. Waugh comes along, does it with Colorado with 5 minutes remaining, comes back and wins. I believe it was game 1 against Minnesota. And all of a sudden now, everybody's now going, well, what's the point of us waiting? Which is a good point. I do have to say the backfire on that is you get a hit early and then it's what's going on with that. Alexander is saying thoughts on Matt Rampe. Well, actually, I've liked what I've seen out of Matt Rampe. And Philk has said he's going to be a big addition to the Rangers going forward. I think Adam Edstrom might be a little bit more. He's more of a player. But going to last night, if that's what you're referring to, Alex, I thought he kept his elbow in, which he did. But does size come into it in the NHL question? And the player, which was Nathan Bastian, who was leaning over, I don't know about that. I didn't think it was a penalty. It definitely looked like it was bad. So when people want to complain about him later, I mean, that's a big guy hitting a guy that's leaning over. Now, let me say this about Nathan Bastian. Nathan Bastian went for a finesse move in the second period, and Jacob Trouba cleans his clock. I mean, is Jacob Trouba supposed to ease up on him? Because You got hit in the first period. Like, what are you doing? And then, look, Nathan Bastian went after Jacob Trouba to be like, what are you doing hitting me? Well, that's exactly where that is right there. David is saying I'd pull the goalie with the amount of time that's left. If you're on the power play, 6-on-4 is better than 6-on-5. That is correct. John is saying if Victor Tikhonov didn't pull the goalie at all, well, yeah, he didn't know what to do. They were always winning. Justin is saying the Rangers should get rid of Goodrow. Well, there's still good qualities of Goodrow. Sorry about that, everybody. Is there good qualities of Goodrow? Of course there is. This is the hard part about doing everything on the Mac, where when I was on my desktop, it was a lot easier. So thank you to the 30 of you right here, right now. Wicked is saying, I'm totally for pulling the goalie early if you're down by that much. Who cares if you lose 5-0? If you get that goal early, then maybe you can get back into the game. That is a good point. JE is saying, by the way, David said, big addition, slow clap. JE is saying the New York Rangers brutalized the Devils. I mean, it was just demoralizing. You could see it in their faces on the Jersey bench. Look, I got to tell you about this. I picked the Devils to come out of the East at the beginning of the season. I don't know where that team is. They are slow. They are constantly injured. Their goaltending is awful. We could go on for them for a while. Now, let's see about them a month from now. Let's say they get UC Saros in a trade, which I do not believe works in the regular season, to acquire a goalie in the middle of the season or at the trade deadline, because the last goalie to have success, I've gone over this, is Wade Flaherty. Oh no, sorry, went to the wrong one. Dwayne Rollison, Edmonton Oilers, and he ended up going from Tampa Bay to Edmonton and going to the Stanley Cup Finals. It doesn't happen that often anymore. If Ryan Miller couldn't get the Blues to the second round when they were probably at their best defensively and he was at his best as a goaltender, that kind of tells you what you need to know. And then he puts Trouba in a headlock. JE, you're right about it. Because, look, if you're Bastian, you got to do that. You got to stand up for yourself. But on the other hand, what the hell? DP is saying Edstrom is a beast. Once he gets his game down, huge upside there. I'm hoping on that. Prediction on Rangers for Flyers for tomorrow. I'm going to say, you know what? Betting against the Flyers is a bad solution. But you can't go against the Rangers right now. If they decide to throw Quick in, and there's going to be a back-to-back coming, they decide to go Quick. I'm still in favor of the Rangers, but man, John Tortorella is coach of the year. How is John Tortorella not the coach of the year? All right, guys, I'm going to take BH must love AT&T. Because I went off for a second. Yeah, no, that was Goodrow's move for the offseason. In my opinion, Alex is saying, even though it wasn't a penalty, I think he's doing too much for his second game. Yeah, I get what. Not a good look for coaches if you're getting a full game penalty. Look, I understand that what you're saying right there. And now that we got Anthony back, guys, we're going to go to our NHL Bar Talk. But first, we have to stop and take a message from DraftKings for the Hockey Podcast Network. Hockey fans light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sports app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at the DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN.
Shot. This is the easiest I've ever had to answer.
I'm going to say beer. I can't even begin to describe.
I'm actually going to go crazy. I'm going to buy everybody around on this one. And welcome back to Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk, where we're gauging our confidence on NHL topics based on our choice of drink. Are you so confident that you're buying everybody around? So, I'll have a beer, or, oh God, I'll take a shot. Play along down in the comments below, guys. And by the way, I didn't get a chance to say it on air, but thank you to Ranger Central and all the boys that got me this. It's a layup. It's a layup chart, and if you don't understand, you got Blake Griffin because it's Lob City. You got Ken Talbot because why not? PLT. I mean, all these guys on there. Jeremy Lin, who I've called Anthony so many times, and of course Lou and Frank Vetrano on there. Guys, thank you very much.
That's great.
Turned around the camera on there. It was a great gift I got for the boys at the tailgate. And Anthony, of course, I gotta plug this. Make sure if you want a Big Apple hockey hat, click the link below. And we're gonna have a trade deadline special coming March 8th. We hope there's a lot to talk about it. And Anthony, speaking of a lot to talk about, we're gonna start with the New York Rangers because they made news this week. As a matter of fact, Wednesday, signing Johnny Brzezinski to a 2-year, one-way deal. So he's gonna stay with the big club pretty much no matter what. The Rangers, Johnny Brzezinski, ends their need at center.
Brodzinski spelled with an I at the end, not Y. But
Motherfucker.
So there wouldn't be a Mark. It wouldn't be a Mark spelling gap if you didn't include that. But I mean, no, I would say shot because he's played well, but just because you re-signed him, like for instance, if Brodzinski stands in the way of like getting Adam Henrique or someone who's like a better center, I mean that would be short-sighted for the Rangers. So I mean, in the best case scenario, you get a better third line center. You can always move Brodzinski to the 4C role. So no, I don't think it takes the Rangers out of the market for a 3C. I think they very much still are kicking tires on a guy like Henrique. So I'm gonna go shot with this one. With that said, I do think they're also in the market for a scoring wing as well. But no, I don't think it ends their need at center by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm gonna go with shot on this as well. I'm gonna cover your face again, Anthony. I think if you're telling me Nick Dowd, who a lot of our viewers are saying the Rangers should go after, as well as, let's say, for instance, I don't think Adam Henrique is in play. I just don't. If they're asking for a first-round draft pick, good, eat it. I don't think there's a first-round draft pick that you have to give up for a single player on the rumored trade line right now, except for Noah Hannafin. I think Noah Hannafin would cost you a first-round draft pick. I don't think anybody else would. And I think right now they're thinking it's a seller's market. We're going to see about that soon enough. But I do think Brodzinski's played well enough. Now, is his offensive production good enough? It's been okay. It hasn't been great. He had an assist last night. Or not an assist. It wasn't credited to him when Alexei Lafreniere scored his first goal. But it's one of those things that he's played well enough for the Rangers to give him an extended look. Now, if you're telling me you could upgrade your third line center and Brodzinski goes to 4, now I'm really listening. And that's what the Rangers are going to have to look at.
A lot of comments about Yanni Gourde in the comments section here.
A lot.
Arthur Staple today mentioned Gourde, but he said that the biggest kind of like stumbling block in the way of Gourde is that he's under contract, I think at like 5 point something. So that would be tough for the Rangers to fit in going forward for next season. So I don't know how they would make that work. I don't think Seattle would really have any appetite to take back a guy like Barclay Goodrow in the deal. So I would actually really be curious of how the Rangers would make that work. But I mean, otherwise, I
is
think
at 5.1, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's tough for the Rangers to work in. I don't know if they would be able to make the financials of that work.
Anthony, well, we're going to switch gears and go to the Islanders. Now, the one guy who Patrick Waugh handled with kid gloves and a guy that felt badly about the outcome on Sunday night was Noah Dobson, who tried that saucer pass that Artemi Panarin knocked down and ended up scoring the game-winning goal on. However, look at the positive on this. Noah Dobson is third in the NHL right now in defenseman scoring. He's 58 points. And you gotta ask this question. Is Noah Dobson a finalist for the Norris Trophy right now?
It's a round. It's an easy round. It's going to be Makar, Hughes, Dobson. I mean, Dobson is, and I actually talked to the guys with the fourth period about this at the game, and he's within shouting distance of Makar and Hughes in points. He plays on a much less talented team. I mean, Hughes has guys like Besser and Miller, Pedersen, all around him that, if you look, are amongst the league leaders in categories. Besser with goals, Miller goals, Pedersen points. Even his defensive partner, Philip Hronek, has a lot of points. And then Colorado was a machine too. The fact that Noah Dobson is in their category right now in terms of the realm of the production, and he plays more minutes, he hits more, he blocks more shots. I think this is a case of where you take all that into consideration. He should win the damn thing, but he's certainly going to be a finalist for sure.
I'm only going beer for one reason. Let me start first with the case against Noah Dobson. Then I'm going to make the case for him that says, yes, he should easily be in there. First, Anthony, let me say this, that if you may not look at the eye test, maybe you look at a turnover like Sunday, you go, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. Maybe one guy I can think of off the top of my head is Josh Morrissey. Maybe he sneaks in there ahead of Dobson, makes him fourth. Here's why I'm going to go with Dobson. Needs to get much more respect. The Islanders' goal differential this season. Do you know what it is?
It's like a minus 26, I believe.
You are correct on the nose. And, and what's Dobson's plus minus?
He's a plus.
He's a plus 19.
11, plus 12. Yeah,
he's a plus
so
19.
Yeah.
Everybody might want to rip on like plus minus and everything, but in this case, Dobson's getting power play points, Anthony, and they're not going to his credit. I mean, he should be like a minus 5 or something like that if you're using that logic. Instead, he's a plus 19 on a team that has given up 26 more goals than what they have scored. I gotta give the kid all the credit in the world. We've been singing his praises all season. That's for sure.
I mean, I'll say this: Cale Makar is 60 points. He's got 2 more points than Noah Dobson, and he plays with guys like Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen, and the Avalanche are one of the best teams in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Noah Dobson is a stud. He is absolutely a finalist. If he's not, there's something seriously wrong.
And for that matter, let me just click on that right now just to prove that other point. That if you said Cale Makar's plus minus, you're looking at a guy that's a plus 6 on a team that is far superior goal differential. They're a plus 29. Like, think about that for a minute. Like, it figured it would be the other way around. Like, Dobson is the one that's having trouble. No, not the case. Not the case. Anthony, we're going to start with the Pacific. Usually we go to the Metro first, then we go to the Pacific. We're going to go all over the place with this one. But the Oilers, 39-1 under Kris Knoblauch. Is Kris Knoblauch coach of the year?
No. I gotta say that. I mean, there's a lot of guys you could look to this. You could talk about Jim Montgomery again. You could talk about Paul Maurice. You could talk about Rick Bowness. You can talk about Rick Tocchet. I'm gonna say John Tortorella is the coach of the year for me. If I had to vote, my vote counted. I would say Torts. I mean, the Flyers were expected to be a lottery team. They still haven't gone away. And this is a guy that, look at his roster. I mean, he's getting the most ever. Like Travis Konecny has really took a couple of steps in his development. Sean Couturier has come back when it looked like at one point his career could be done. He's still a productive player. Yeah, I mean, the Torts has gotten so much out of this roster that on paper before the season, you looked at it and we talked about it. We trashed the Flyers. We're like, oh, this is going to be an ugly year. And no, they're still hanging at third in the Metro, and they got a decent lead on the Devils, Capitals, and Islanders now. I think they're up. I think they're up 7 points on them. So, yeah, for me, it's Torts. No knock on Knoblauch. Listen, he came in, turned the Oilers around. But, I mean, look, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid on that roster.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's shot for me.
Anthony, it's going to be shot for me, too. I'm going to also say this. Kris Knoblauch's done a hell of a job. Let's give him all the credit in the world. But when I'm trying to sell him as coach of the year, look, you got a guy with a winning percentage like that, he's going to raise some eyebrows. For me, I said it in mid-season, and he's only gotten more adversity, and he's only strengthened his team. But John Tortorella, to me, is the coach of the year. He has been phenomenal with what he's been doing for the Philadelphia Flyers. They have the distraction of Carter Hart being taken off the team, and they're still winning. I mean, they're beating good teams. They beat the Winnipeg Jets. They've beaten a lot of good teams. And you know what? The New York Rangers better make sure they win their game against them tomorrow. And they got to keep this rolling because there's a team coming up behind them. Because Anthony, in their last 22 games, Carolina Hurricanes, 17-4-1. They are looking like the Carolina Hurricanes we thought we were going to be seeing all season. So I'll ask you this. Even though they have a game in hand and they're 6 points back, Carolina Hurricanes will pass the New York Rangers by the trade deadline.
I'm gonna go shot. I mean, they're 6 points behind the Rangers.
6 points behind the Rangers with a game in hand.
Yeah. I mean, they may get closer. They may put some pressure on the Rangers, may get down to 3. But I think for the Hurricanes to pass the Rangers in 2 weeks, I think the Rangers would have to go on a pretty decent slide for that to happen. So I'll say shot. But the Hurricanes certainly have turned it around. They're going to get back Freddie Anderson soon. They're likely going to make moves at the deadline. And I think for me that they're going to solidify themselves in that second spot. But I would be really surprised if they caught the Rangers by the trade deadline.
I'll tell you what, Anthony, I'm going to go shot on this first, and I'm not being a homer. I will say this right now. I think the Rangers, the next 5 games, they get the Flyers, they get Columbus, then they get the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers, and then they're off until the trade deadline passes. I think in this case, Laviolette is going to keep them focused and keep them moving forward. They might lose tomorrow to the Philadelphia Flyers. They're going to have to regroup and go beat Columbus, whom they've had trouble with this season in the 2 games that they played. Now, to Carolina, that's a bit of a tall task to make up 6 points that quickly and get past them. The Rangers aren't going winless. So I do think Carolina isn't going to get there. Carolina's found their game. That's the number one thing to remember about this. Carolina's found their game, and look out for them. My question right back at you, and you don't have to worry about it's just a yes or no, is Pyotr Kochetkov, the goalie, you're going to run with in the playoffs with them?
No, I mean, I think if Anderson gets back and he's healthy, I think Anderson's the guy they go to. But Kochetkov will certainly be the backup if he falters. And don't forget, they have Spencer Martin now in Carolina too, so he's in that mix as well.
All right. Moving on, going to, by the way, the Florida Panthers, the team that outed them. Now, this one I have to update because they did lose last night. But this is from Wednesday. They beat the Ottawa Senators to move into the top spot in the East. Boston then won to get back the top spot. But Anthony, I'm going to ask you this question because the Panthers right now are at 78 points. They are just short of the best team in the NHL. They're too short of Boston and Vancouver. The Florida Panthers will win the President's Trophy again.
Certainly possible, but I'm gonna say beer. My pick right now is going to be Vancouver. Now, I think Vancouver may win the President's Trophy, but I am unsure about them come playoff time. They don't have much experience, and I think it could be a recipe for them to falter there. But I I don't know. I'm gonna say beer here. My gut says the Vancouver Canucks.
I'm going to go beer as well. I'm more confident that it's more of an IPA. So let's say a stronger beer.
Yeah.
Maybe Arrogant Bastard, which was one of my favorite beers to drink. But Anthony, this is a hell of a team. And you look at the Panthers, they can get by the Bruins, they can beat the Bruins, and they very well can win the President's Trophy. I'm not sure if Paul Maurice ever won the President's Trophy in his career. And I know some of the players on there were on the team that obviously won it 2 years ago, but they're also so focused. I wouldn't be surprised. And originally it was going to be, they're going to win the Atlantic. I had to up this in our rundowns because you know what? You got to up the stakes. It's what it's all about. So we'll see about that. I do think the Panthers, if I'd be shocked, in my opinion, we did this last week. They're going to come out of the Atlantic bracket. I think I'd be shocked that the Panthers aren't representing the Atlantic in the conference finals and perhaps the Stanley Cup finals. We'll see about that one. Last one, and then we're going to get to your comments right now in a second, everybody. So keep on with your comments right now. Auston Matthews, 52nd goal of the season in his 55th game. What a season he is putting together. Anthony, Auston Matthews, 351 goals in 536 career games. I know everybody wants me to ask this question, Anthony, and I'll say this first. Ed, give me a yes or no. Auston Matthews, 70 goals this year, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go yes as well. I mean, who knows? He can get hot and get 80. Be the Philk would be able to say it off the top of his head. I think he'd be the 7th player to get to 80. And the first one's is Hull, I believe, in 91, 92. But again, Philk would correct me on that one. I wish he was here. But Anthony, I'm going to ask a bolder question. At the end of his career, Auston Matthews will be NHL's all-time goal scorer. We don't want any layups.
I know right now I know right now that he's, we talked about this in our chat when you compared him to Ovechkin at this stage.
He's ahead of him.
Like kind of like right there, but I'm gonna say no. I mean, it's just so hard. What we've seen with Alex Ovechkin is kind of like a, once in a generation type thing. I mean, the guy was stayed healthy. I mean, Ovechkin never missed extended periods of time due to injury. And you just don't know in this day and age with Matthews, who knows what can happen. And don't get me wrong, he's clearly the best goal scorer in the world right now. But I mean, I don't know. Put it this way, I mean, Ovechkin, who I think everyone thought was a shoe-in to break Gretzky's record prior to this year, thought that maybe he would do it. Now all of a sudden, it looks like he may not even be able to, and he's within shouting distance. So I'm gonna say no, but with actually the pivot back to Ovechkin right now, Mark, he's heated up of late. He's got 16 goals, and now it's pretty conceivable. It's pretty conceivable that he gets. She made a cameo. That he gets to 25 goals, which a while ago would think that he may not even reach 20. So he's at 838 goals, Mark. If he reaches 25, which would be like 9 more goals, so that's it's like 847. So he's gonna be like 50 something goals off the record, and all he's got to do if he plays 3 more years is score like 15 goals over the course of those 3 years. So Ovechkin still might catch Wayne Gretzky. Just wanted to kind of add that in there, despite his down year. But
my question,
I'm going to say Matthews, no. No, I don't know.
By the way,
Matthews will not be.
By the way, it's hard to multitask in general, and Anthony is able to both parent and quote hockey stats at the same time. So the case with this one, Ovechkin very well might pass Gretzky, but I think it might be Matthews passing Ovechkin, which as an American, I would take an immense amount of pride with that one. So sorry to my Canadian friends that are listening right now, but I'm going to go beer on this one because I don't know if Matthews is slowing down. And it's not because I think Matthews is more of a complete player than Ovechkin is. And I'm not saying that in any way to offend Alexander Ovechkin. But Ovechkin was actually healthier than Matthews is at this time. But Matthews just plays, he scores. That's what he does. And it's crazy to me.
Yep.
I think Matthews is a shoo-in for 700. I think I would, if you rate it as odds, I would say he's a 3 out of 4 chance to win, to score 800. I mean, you look at the numbers, he's on pace way further than Ovechkin. Not way, but still, he's ahead of Ovechkin. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Matthews does it. I'm going to get to the people in a second who are going to call me an idiot. Do not worry. You are not alone. You would be like every other person on the planet. Guys, thank you very much for Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk. We engaged our confidence on NHL topics based on our choice of drink. Let's get to some of your comments below. And by the way, do you think you could actually parent and quote hockey stats like Mr. LaRocco does? Throw your comments down below. Let's take some of your questions, guys. And we'll go with, I'm just going right to the bottom right now. Heck, Ovi had to do a 2 short-handed seasons. Jay, you're right about that one. Ovi had to be healthy, David is saying, and play to 41 to come close to Wayne Gretzky. Matthews doesn't stand a chance. Could be true. But
yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for longevity. And we don't know if Matthews is going to have the same longevity as Ovechkin. So it's hard to say definitively,
Well, Matt asked this question. Do you think Matthews hits 50 and 50? Technically speaking, not this season, but he already did it. Well, there's that asterisk that's in there.
There's talk about him doing. There's some talk about him doing 60 and 60. He would need 8 goals in his. What are the Maple Leafs? He's played in how many games?
He's done 53 games. I think I had it on there. I had the number right there. Let me just find it. I think it was 52 goals in 55 games.
All right, so he would need 8 goals in his next 5 games to to do 60 and 60. So, I mean, that's on the table. That's certainly on the table for him, the way he
Well,
scores. So, yeah,
if you go to 50 and 50 on Wikipedia right now, you're going to get the guys that do 50 goals in 50 team games. Then you get the guy that did 50 goals in 50 personal games,
yep,
Cam Neely, 1993-94.
yep.
Then you have Auston Matthews, that if you took 50 games in his season from his first goal to his 50th goal, he did it in the middle of the season. So technically, in a way, Matthews has already done 50 and 50. Now, can he do 50 and 50 in a regular season? It's very hard, especially nowadays. But as Kris T is saying, Ovi's got 2 seasons left. First off, by the way, let's give credit to Wayne Gretzky and how great of a player he was. He's not even the NHL's best goal scorer in a way if you're asking people's opinions. And yet, Wayne Gretzky has the most goals of all time, and nobody's even close to him. So that tells you right there. Like JV is saying, Ovi is catching him minus a career-ending injury. I've often said this about Alexander Ovechkin. I think Ovi is Brett Hull 2.0 with speed and talent. And when those legs go, he's just going to set up, find soft spot, one-time goals. If he left the Capitals, Anthony, I think, and I don't think he's going to leave the Capitals. I think that's part of the problem. If you left the
No,
Capitals, went to, say, Florida, because every Russian goes there now.
he's not leaving the Capitals.
He's not leaving the Capitals. Well, let's say the Capitals get a playmaking center. Then you might see a resurgence, and that would help him. Justin is asking this one. Do you think – oh, I clicked on that one, sorry. Do you think the Rangers could get Jordan Eberle at the trade deadline, Anthony?
So Seattle is 3 points out of a wild card spot. They're right there. Last I heard is that Seattle, to my surprise, they're actually looking to try to extend Eberle. So I don't know what they're going to do with him. I would imagine, in these next 2 weeks, if they close that gap and are, 3 points or less from a playoff spot or even in a playoff spot, I'm not sure Eberle gets moved. So for me, he's like on the bubble. I don't. I'm not convinced he's going to be traded. I mean, if Seattle falls out of it and he passes on their extension, then yeah, I would say Eberle's going to be an option for a bunch of teams. But right now, my gut is that he stays in Seattle.
I would think that he stays in Seattle right now. They're too close, and he's a big part of them. Like, he's an original. I understand using the words original
Yeah.
Kraken might not hold their weight, but look at what happened with Vegas. That you had the 5 original Vegas players start the Stanley Cup Finals last year, Game 5. Look, Anthony, I think that helps, and I think I don't think they're going to look to move him. I think they're going to look to resign him.
Yeah, whether or not he chooses to stay there is one thing, but I know they're trying to. So we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see how that develops.
If so, would that
Another
make him the
option.
biggest name that moves?
Who?
Would that make him the biggest name that moves at the trade deadline?
Eberle? No, not at this point in his career. I would say even Hannafin, Frank Vetrano, would be bigger news than Eberle moving. One guy that's talked about, surprising enough, despite where they are in the standings, is the Flyers and Scott Lawton. There's been a lot of teams calling the Flyers on Scott Lawton. He's got some term left. He's been linked to the Rangers too. He's your prototypical, third line center. I think he's a guy that, even though the Flyers haven't been in the playoffs in a while, I think he's like if you had to pick, he's a guy that would perform well in the playoffs. So I I would watch out for Scott Lawton for the Rangers and some other teams. I think the Flyers may, if they get an offer like a first round pick, I think they might move him.
Anthony, Scott Lawton's been one of those guys that's been on the trade market since 2014. I remember that back then when the Rangers were trying to get him. Or Scott Atkinson. Oh, sorry, Scott Atkinson. Jesus. Cam Atkinson.
Yeah.
Who the hell? Yeah. So Cam Atkinson, who also, by the way, is going to be, I think that's the guy the Flyers are going to move. Flyers are going to move Cam Atkinson. But as NWRF Life is saying, I don't want Scott Lawton. That's all right. But you know what? And as Matt is saying right here, Lawton is a bum. Keep him away from the Rangers. He's Goudreau 2.0. So I don't think Novak is going to be exactly available. He's an RFA, right? Novak from the Predators.
Predators. Yeah, I believe he's still under team control. But again, Nashville's a team that's that they're very much in the mix. So I don't know. I'm not sure if Nashville will opt to move Novak.
Anthony,
that's this next week, like I said, there's 2 weeks to the trade. That actually Novak is going to be UFA. He is going to be UFA. Just look.
Oh, he's going to be UFA. All right.
Yeah.
Because he's making nothing.
Trade deadline 2 weeks from today. I think what happens in this from now to next Friday, I think the picture of sellers, buyers out there is going to become a little more clear. You would think some teams are going to probably use these next 2 weeks to determine which direction they're going to go. Speaking of the Caps, even surprisingly, the Caps are tied with the Devils and the Islanders. I think they're in a different situation than both teams. The Capitals are one of the lowest scoring teams in the league. I think they know, even despite them being in the mix, that they are not in a position to go for it with any kind of move, which similar to the Flyers they might move down regardless of where they are. So no, I don't think the Capitals are going to be making any trades. I think what they're going to do is view this as house money. They're going to keep trying to win some games, and if they could squeak in with the roster they have, I think that's what they're going to do. But I don't think they're going to move any pieces to try to, bring in a couple of guys. Quite the opposite. I think they might even still move out.
They have so few pieces left, Anthony. I don't think they can do that. I think what they have to do then
No, they're not. They're not.
Yeah, what they have to do then is focus on rebuilding this roster. By the way, this is something that the Pittsburgh Penguins should have done like 3 years ago. I understand I'm saying that in a year that they won the division, but by the way, they probably should have looked at doing that in 2019. But you take a step back.
You know what it is? You know what it is, Mark? You could even maybe classify the Penguins because they're only 2 points behind the three teams I just mentioned. But I think a lot of these teams, the Devils, the Islanders, again, I think they look at what the Panthers did last year and say to themselves, hey, the Panthers were in the same situation. Everyone was kind of saying the Panthers, they're not, they're not even going to make the playoffs, or even if they do get in, they're just going to lose to Boston, which is the same thing as this year. Whoever gets in that 8th seed, the people are going to say, oh, well, oddly enough, ironic now, they're just going to lose to Florida in the first round. So
yeah,
I think some of these teams kind of view that as, listen, anything can happen once you're in. And I think for general managers like Tom Fitzgerald, Lou Lamoriello, when you look at your roster and you see good pieces in place and just an area or two where you need to improve upon, it's worth it for them to still go for it, because I think once they get in, that things can change and they can, win a round or two. So I think that's what Tom Fitzgerald's thinking. I think that's why the Devils are going to try to acquire a goaltender. A lot of smoke behind Jacob Markstrom. Now there's some talk that they're going to talk to the Predators about UC Saros. They're in the market for Kris Tanev, with Dougie Hamilton being out. So they very much still believe that, with some tweaks they can get in and make a decent run. And, the same thing goes for Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders. He looks at having guys like Barzal and Dobson who have an elite years. Bo Horvat's been fantastic. Brock Nelson is once again going to finish with close to 40 goals. And you have Ilya Sorokin in net. He feels as though you make some moves, you get in the playoffs, with that recipe of players, anything can happen. And I think that's what you're going to see here with the Devils, the Islanders, not so much the Capitals, but maybe even the Penguins. Well, actually, with Gensel out, the Penguins' philosophy may have changed. I don't know if they're going to make any moves to buy. But even in the West, we just talked about Seattle. Seattle's 3 points out. Talking about selling Eberle, Gord, Wenberg. They may look and say, listen, our competition for the wild cards are flawed teams like St. Louis and Nashville. Let's add a couple of pieces and try to get in. So I think this is what we're looking at right now. I think this next, like I said, week or so, I think will really determine which direction some of these teams are going to go. And hopefully, Mark, I know we talked about how, like, after the Lindholm and Monahan trades happened, that we thought maybe the floodgates were going to open and this deadline is going to be really boring. Here we are, 2 weeks to the day, and there hasn't been anything else. So maybe we'll get our wish. Maybe deadline day will be action-packed. But with that said, historically, the week that we're coming into, which is the 1 week out week, that's when things really pick up, and you see a lot. And you see a lot of trades. So I think some more guys are going to come off the board between now and a week from today. But we'll see.
Well, again, I just want to say first off, thank you to everybody that's watching us right now. We got the 44 of you right now, which thank you. Make sure you appease the YouTube gods and hit that subscribe button and the like. Now, going back to this into the comments, I do have to agree. I think Novak would be a great addition for the New York Rangers. I agree with JE right here. Matt also agrees with this. Justin, I do have to let you know about this one. What about a Vladimir Tarasenko reunion? It's not happening. The Rangers still have Tarasenko money on their books, and it's a salary cap circumvention. Statboy Steven broke this down for people on Twitter, and I even talked to him about the at the tailgate we had, and it's not going to happen. The third side of that is for the Rangers. I didn't see what the Rangers were in love with Tarasenko last year, so I'm not about that. And I know the Rangers need speed, is what JE's saying. But you know something? Tarasenko didn't exactly bring the speed. Chris G is saying, I fear the Devils after the deadline if they get those pieces. Here's the thing. I do have to ask about this one, Anthony, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. They get Dougie Hamilton back late in April. Late in the season, early April, I mean. So right before the playoffs. You have UC Soros, who they're rumored to get. Let's say they get him. And then it's going to be, all right, they get Soros, you install the goaltender, but he's going to be behind two rookie defensemen and really a decor that hasn't been that good. And you watched that game last night. They weren't that great. So you got a whole piece still at UC Soros level. And then the last piece of that is you got Chris Tanev, who is coming in as UFA. He might already be thinking about free agency at that point, especially if the Devils don't get their stuff together. And you get Lindy Ruff right now, who's blaming the media. He's blaming the media. What the hell is he doing?
No, Mark, I think if the Devils got UC Saros, I think that's cause for concern because their goaltending is not good. And UC Saros, certainly a top 10 goalie in this league. I mean, some people make cases top 5 goalie in the league. So if the Devils added UC Saros, that I would be not only for this year, but going forward, I would be concerned because they have a lot of young talent. And even if they miss the playoffs this year, you got to imagine they're going to be back next year. So Saros answers a lot of questions for them. So I would not want to see Saros go to New Jersey or even Jacob Markstrom for that matter. I mean, Markstrom, there was last week, it was Elliot Friedman reported that a deal with the Devils and Markstrom was pretty much agreed upon. They just couldn't figure out, I think, the financials of it. But Devils are certainly poking around for goaltending, and whether it be Saros or Markstrom, if they got one of those guys, that could push them into the playoffs.
Yeah, and we were talking about Vladimir Tarasenko just now. He has 44 goals in 91 playoff games. That's what it was. Oh, it's 97. I'm sorry for that. The guy can score in the playoffs. He's been able to do it. Now, I do have to say that I think it's a big adjustment for a goaltender to come over midseason. I've been beating this drum for a long time,
Yeah, it is.
and I think it's tough. And I would hope. Look, if anybody could do it, Soros is one of those guys. I still have to ask that question of, look, if you're gonna tell me talent, Anthony, 100%. Talent doesn't always win, and that's why offensive teams usually don't win. You need coaching in the playoffs. You need the scheme. I just don't see it if it's just them assembling a bunch of things, which I guess might lead us into this one. And Where for Life is asking, are you guys surprised that GM Fitzgerald has not made a move yet for a goalie? And do you think that last night's beatdown causes the Devils to flinch and pay the high asking price?
Well, as I just said, they almost did get a goalie. Markstrom to the Devils apparently was pretty close last week, but it kind of, I don't know if you want to say it fell apart, but it ended up not happening. So I think Fitzgerald has been poking around for a while for a goalie. It's just a matter of, when the price comes down to your liking, that's when you pull the trigger. And certainly, I think even they could still get Markstrom. I think it's still a work in progress. But now they're also looking at Saros. So, am I surprised it didn't happen yet? I mean, maybe a little bit, but these things take time. And I would say, short of the Devils maybe like losing their next 3-4 in a row, I think they're going to be making a move for that goaltender.
You know what's funny? Because again, Ranger fans keep bringing up Vladimir Tarasenko, as Ranger Central is doing right here. Even though, again, I broke down Statboy Stevens said it's not happening. Because the salary cap circumvention, that's the reason why it's not happening. But he brings up a good point. Tarasenko does a movie. I think Everly is a perfect fit. If he's not available, I would want Joseph Zucker or Riley Smith. Riley Smith is not coming. Penguins are not trading him here. So first thing
Actually,
first.
he's been mentioned now. He might be on the move. I heard he's been linked to Vegas, a reunion there in Vegas. So, yeah, Riley Smith could be on the way out.
But you think that Pittsburgh would deal him to the Rangers?
I mean, it's not like trading Jake Gensel to Rangers would be a bigger story. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's impossible.
But it's as much as I might rip a Tarasenko trade to say the Rangers, and just again, just without thinking about it too much, like the Islanders getting him would be a different story. I think there might be a place for him on the Islanders, but that's
Jason Zucker.
Tarasenko.
Tarasenko.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
still think he'd be a
for
good
sure.
fit
I think Tarasenko would help. As I've been beating the drum for a while now, you acquire Vetrano, Tarasenko, that bumps Engvall to the third line, which is where I think he should be, and then Tarasenko, Vetrano play on the second line. So yeah, I think that's certainly a fit. And we'll see. Like I said earlier in the show, if the Islanders beat Tampa Bay tomorrow, get it down to 3 points, and then from there, make up further ground on Detroit and Tampa in the next 2 weeks. Lou's looking to buy. So,
and
we'll
once
see what
again,
happens
games in
there.
hand. Games in hand for the Islanders.
I think Tarasenko, Vetrano are guys that he has on his list. So we'll see what happens.
Going back to Justin, this is my third time going here right now. Why do our GMs love giving up our future for washed up vets? It pisses me off. My shortest answer on that is because the vets have a track record. Young players don't. And it's mortgaging your future. That's what all GMs will do, no matter what. After all, Neil Smith, who we had on our show, you go ahead, check that interview out from back in August. But he even traded Todd Marchand for Craig McTavish. Almost like Craig Patrick. Might as well have been. They were the same age. But joking about that anyway, guys. But Craig McTavish, and he ended up being he might have been the best acquisition for the New York Rangers at the trade deadline. that year. If you guys want a decent read, I can't tell you it's my best written article. Check out Reunions. Is Reunited really feel so good on bahpod.com. I'll put the article in the description in a minute. But they'll always go for the veteran because the veteran's already been through enough. That's why they'll always do that. Chris G is saying if we get Riley Smith, I'll cry. That's what I want, but it ain't happening. We need Rampage to charge the net and see how brave these goalies are. I would definitely be scared about that. Jay is saying Lindy blaming the media when his team couldn't score in 17 minutes worth of power play time is wow. Look, the Devils have way too much talent to think of anything else outside that room. I'll put it to you that way. Are they slower than what they've been? Yeah. But are the Devils should be looking internally, not externally. And that's what makes you just shake your head. Anthony, I got you back now.
One name I can tell you that has been out there is Josh Norris. I can tell you the Senators are not shopping him, but they're getting calls on him and they're taking those calls. My guess is that would for them to move him, who's got a lot of term left on his contract, that would have to be a hockey type trade, talent for talent. But Josh Norris is a real good player. I think if there's a team that could pry him from Ottawa, would be a team like Boston, who's been looking for a center for a long time. He's a high end center. I mean, this is a guy that scored 35 goals a couple of years ago. I know he was hurt last year with a knee injury. Came back this year. Probably not putting up the numbers he would like, but he's a very good hockey player. I would just keep an eye on Josh Norris out there. His name.
I could see that name being banded around, but I can't see them moving him. That's way too good of a player. You and way too much term on that contract. It's sort of like I don't even know if I'd even put him in a who says no. So, and by the way, Jay was saying Larmer was the best addition in 1994. Brian Noonan was in there, but Craig McTavish did so much defensively. Anthony, you were saying?
Yeah, I don't expect it to happen unless Senators got a really good deal, like a hockey deal offer. But I do think it's interesting that they are listing on the teams that call on him.
We're going to go back to Ranger Central's got a great question, but Johnny Red was pointing this out. This is what happens with the Islanders struck gold when they got Goring. And ever since then, all teams keep thinking, can they be that lucky? I think it's more strategy, with the Goring thing. History tells us that Goring slotted everybody in. He shut down the other team's top defenseman. And that's where the benefit of Goring is. That's where when you sometimes, like baseball's got this all the time, Anthony. You insert a player and then everybody's role changes. Hockey does that too. Yeah. So I think that really helps. And after all, Butch Goring could shut down the other team and never go in the penalty box. That's what's even scary about that when you look at it back in the day. But Anthony Rangers.
I'm surprised Butch Goring isn't in the Hall. I'm surprised Butch Goring isn't in the Hall.
Agreed. I'm surprised about it too, because that's more of a defensive center type of deal. Maybe it's because he never won. Did he ever win a Selke? But I mean, he's got 4 Stanley Cups. He
won a Conn Smythe and he won a Lady Byng. He's got 4 Stanley Cups. And he's got over 1,000 games, 888 points. So I know he doesn't have like 1,000 points, but 888 in 1107 isn't bad. and then you factor in 4 Stanley Cups and a Conn Smythe and a Lady Byng. I mean, it's certainly a case. There's certainly a case to be made for
I
Bush to
think
be in
that's
the
a
Hall.
very good case. I think that's a very good case. Ranger Central right here. Evan's going with this one. I could see Ottawa needing to make a major shakeup, and how and only Gainey won the Selkie back then. Well, yeah. Well, that's because writers get locked in. 48 of you right now. Everybody, thanks very much for watching. Keep staying with us. I can see Ottawa needs to make a major shakeup. How many times are they going to keep running it back with this core, as he's saying? And by the way, great line to use right there, core. But I think Ottawa does need a major shakeup. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Drake Batherson's gone in the offseason.
He's a good player. He's a good player, Batherson. Actually, if he was on the market, there'd be a lot of teams that would be highly interested in him.
Justin, going
now,
back
Mark,
to you again. Oh, go ahead. What do you got?
I highlighted that question that was up there because.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You got rid of it. I don't know.
Oh, where is it? Where is it? What was the question?
The question from this.
And I know Anthony loves to talk about Alexei Lafreniere. Almost as much as I love to talk about Pierre-Luc Dubois. Is Lafreniere starting to break out? The short answer is yes. Long answer is Lafreniere looks better than he's been. Here's the thing. If Alexei Lafreniere was drafted, let's say where Filipino was, around 20, there's a different expectation for him, and there's a different thought pattern that comes with him. This guy will forever have his career linked to two players, Quentin Byfield and Tim Stützle. Tim Stützle, points-wise, is a stud. On the other hand, who gives a rat's ass? His team is yet to play a playoff game, and they're not even close to playing one anytime soon. Quentin Byfield looks like he's turned the corner. Looks like he's ready to go. Rangers had a need at center. The Rangers decided to go with Lafreniere, who had more talent. And then the Rangers decided to throw Lafreniere on the third line. Quentin Byfield looks like he's starting, that he's arrived. So, Anthony, here's where it really comes to the question. Are we comparing Lafreniere for his own numbers and his own growth, or are we talking about a guy that's drafted number 1 overall and comparing him to all the players who are franchise players?
I am going to say he is not starting to break out. And I say that because of this. Mark, what line does he play on?
The Panarin-Trocheck line.
Mark, how is Artemi Panarin doing this year in terms of points?
Artemi Panarin is among the league leaders in points.
Mark, where was Alexis Lafreniere drafted?
He was drafted number 1 overall.
My last question, Mark, how many points does Lafreniere have?
Top of my head, I haven't looked. We'll say 36.
35.
35, okay.
So let's recap. He's been in the league, this is his 4th season now?
4th season.
Fourth season. He was 1st overall. He's playing with an elite player on Artemi Panarin in a top line role, and he has 35 points.
I know.
He's gonna be lucky if he breaks 50. A player of his draft status, if he was that good playing with Artemi Panarin, he should be at 60 points already. It'd be different. Look, if he was, if he was playing a 4th line role or 3rd line role and had 35 points and was pacing for 50 points, playing with Mick Vukota and Dale Purinton, I would say, yeah, this guy's the goods. But he's playing with Artemi Panarin in a top line role, and he has 35 points and we'll be lucky if he tops 50.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sorry, that's bad. I'm sorry, that's not for me. That's not good enough. That's
Um,
not good enough for first overall
is
pick because
again, but you just answered my
it's not.
question. Are you judging him as a first overall pick or a player that needs to be? If he was drafted 20, is this the same problem? It's sort of like if Eli Manning originally in his first few years, if his last name was Smith, would you judge him the same way? I think part of it is, Anthony, every Ranger fan should be happy that the growth that he's having. Every outside fan should be reacting like you when going, this kid isn't ready for prime time and he might not be the best player in his own draft class. But then again, you look at Dawson Mercer isn't doing that great right now for the New Jersey Devils. As I said before, Tim Stutzla, hey, thank you for checking in with your points. None of them mean anything.
But
You gotta.
it's more so about it's more so about the fact that he's playing with an elite player in a top line role, and he's still pedestrian. I mean, if
An elite player that dominates the
me,
puck, by the way.
I mean, for me, if he was, I just think the numbers should be higher. You know, Rich saying his production's getting better every season, but it's not. I mean, last year he had 49 points, right? He had 49 points last year. He's on pace for 50 this year.
No, 39. 39.
He had 39?
He had 39. He didn't cross 40.
Oh.
Check it
All right,
again.
well, in that
Kako
case,
went
it's
over
still,
40. Yeah.
it's still like a 10-point. It's like a 10-point improvement, but still,
But
I mean, I
but
don't.
again, going with what you're saying, keep going.
What I was gonna say was that like it should be now that he's playing in more of a role with an elite player. Me personally, if I was a Ranger fan, I would want to see him already be at this point in the season, like 50 points right now. Not let alone being on pace when he's going to finish with 50. I think for me to be happy, he should have like 50 or so right now. I don't, I don't know. I think, I think a lot of Ranger fans were so excited when they drafted him first overall. They thought they
Mhm.
were getting another Jack Hughes and they were getting this elite player, which is why these comments come from John
Yeah.
trying to rationalize that he is meeting expectations.
I'm gonna back up a little bit what John says in a second.
I get it. I get it. Yes, is he improved from last year? Yes. He's I think there is improvement. But I mean, at some point results and points matter. You could say he's been the third best player on the team all year. If he's still not producing, what is it, what does it matter? I mean, that's there are plenty you could look at guys that play in the NHL that have a good motor and they're responsible, they play well, but they don't last because at the end of the day, they don't finish, and whatever excuse you make for them, at the end of the day, you don't get the results that matter, which are points and goals. And yeah, fine. If you want to develop into a defensive specialist, fine. Every team needs those players,
Which
but
is what it looks like Kako's developing into.
you're expecting him to be an elite offensive player, and for me, again, I would, if I were a Ranger fan, I would want to see him have at least 50 points, 60 points at this point in the season, especially playing with who he's playing with. That's all I'm saying.
Now, let me say this to you in your case. Christy is saying Ranger fans will do everything but accept the accountability to preserve their dignity. It's actual insanity. All right, but let me say this first. Let me back up Anthony, and then let me go against him a little bit. The first thing to say for Anthony is, if I told you I had a player on my team right now with 15 goals and 17 assists, and he was like a -10 or something like that, and you'd say, well, is that Alexei Lafreniere? No, it's Kyle Palmieri. You're not going to be as impressed. Palmieri was not drafted first overall. Does
Yes.
getting drafted first overall come into the criticism? Of course it does. Now, we're getting to the point where Alexei Lafreniere is just a player. He's not a first overall draft pick. He's just a player. Now, eye test will tell you Alexei Lafreniere should be somewhere around 25 to 26 goals this season. The guy has hit more. Sorry, hold on a second. Alexa, shut up. So anyway, I'll just refer to him as Loft the rest of the time, just so that way that doesn't happen. But Lafreniere he should have more goals. He was a little bit snake bit for a while this year. His playmaking has been very good. Laviolette and the Rangers coaching staff think so well of him. Anytime there's a sixth skater on the ice, it's Lafreniere. Like Lafreniere is the next guy over. Have there been flashes? Sure. Has there been consistency? Of course not. We're not saying that there is. And I think that's the number one thing when it comes to Lafreniere. And I think there is truth in the middle, guys. I do think there's a lot more for Loft to improve. First step for Lafreniere for anything, get the 40 points. He gets 5 more points, that helps in his own confidence. He gets the 20 goals, that helps in his own confidence. And if you don't think those things are mental checkpoints, then go run, let's say, for instance, the Jones Beach Trail that's over on the Wantagh Parkway. You're trying to get all the way to the beach. You're getting over first bridge, the second bridge, the drawbridge at the end. Those things are all mental checkpoints. It just happens. So again, the truth is in the middle, Anthony. Is he a bust for a first overall pick as of right now? Yes. But that book is still left to be unwritten. And he could easily figure that one out. Because after all, every Ranger fan wants to give up on Kaka right now. As Stars fans, that they wish they didn't give up on Valerian Nichushkin.
Yeah, I guess I just go back to, when you're a first overall pick, when you're in your 4th season now, I think that you should be not like an elite player or the best player in the league, but you should at least be more than a guy that, will finish with 50 points in the season. Like I think right now in his development, given the opportunity that he's playing with Artemi Panarin, I would have expected at a bare minimum like a 65-point season from him. And it looks like we might just get a 50-point season. And to me, that's not good enough. It's not good enough.
And you know what?
You need to get more. You need to get more out of him. And I understand David saying development isn't linear. I get that, but it has nothing to do with development being linear. It's about if you're truly good enough and you have that much skill, your skill would have come out at some point and overcome, whether it be bad coaching or, like, for instance, years prior, he didn't get utilized maybe as well as he should have. But then again, the reason for that is because he didn't play well enough to earn it. And if he was as skilled as it was, like, for instance, if he was Jack Hughes, you would have seen the skill oozing out of him in those years, and he would have been given the opportunity to really take it and soar. You never really saw that with him. So I necessarily don't buy the whole argument that he wasn't given a fair shake, because again, I think that if you're really that good, your first year you start in the third line, you're going to get moved up because the coach is going to see that you're clearly playing at a higher level than anyone else on your line, and you slowly but surely are going to get moved up. And that never happened. And now here we are playing with Artemi Panarin on the first line, and you look at him and you say to yourself, like, when I watch him play, I'm like, oh, that's a solid player right there. I say that because I think he is solid. I think he's solid. But any Ranger fan is a homer or lying to themselves if you look at Jack Hughes play and you look at Lafreniere and that person says to themselves, "Oh, I see that skill in Lafreniere that Hughes has." To both ways, like you don't, because it's not there. Hughes is close, not quite. He's close to a generational type of talent with the type of skill he has. Lafreniere doesn't have that skill inside of him, and that's not a knock on him. He's a good player. He's just not he's not in the mold of Jack Hughes, Mitch Marner, Auston Matthews, you know, Elias Pettersson. You know, these are high end elite
Six to the
players
number one.
that you could see it. You could see it right away in
Yeah.
them that they were going to be that way. And Laf is not that.
Which, by the way,
Thank you.
is not. Now, first off, I've been waiting to play this clip for the last couple seconds because, after all,
To be fair,
yeah. Look, Lop has shown that he might have the talent, but you need to have the brains to put that together. And even though he's got the attitude of the moxie, I'm not sure if he had exactly the technical know-how to do it. Now, I do think him playing third line minutes or less under David Quinn slowed down development when you were number one draft pick. So let's take year one off the table. Gerard Gallant didn't know what to do with him. Let's take year two-ish. But at the end of year two, that's when he had the kid line or the lottery line, whichever one anybody wanted to call it, the Kakko, Lafreniere, and Hedel line. And that looked like it was flourishing. And that was all by accident. The Rangers never had a plan what they wanted to do with Alexa Lafreniere. And the fact that you were able to say that about number one draft pick is pretty damning for your franchise. And it really is. Because at least when I know that Connor Bedard got drafted, there's a plan. And Kyle Davidson was doing the best to put a plan around him. I don't see that with Lafreniere. I don't see that with any draft pick in any organization almost ever. What number one overall draft pick goes to a place and he's third in the depth charts? I mean, even Owen Power, when he decided I'm going to go back to college, he was still number two. So it wasn't a big deal. But this is where everybody is right in this. Does Lafreniere still have a future? Yes, of course. Does it look like they're going to keep him around? Yes, of course. But he's not a slam dunk franchise player right now for the New York Rangers. But I would be cautious about moving on from him. Same thing with Kakko. I have a feeling if Kakko moves on elsewhere, his development's going to shoot up, and the Rangers are going to hate it.
And this is a fair point. And I think I agree with this, and I think most people would. But I think it's clear he's not any of these guys. But my issue is I struggle with seeing, because these guys that he mentions here. I mean, outside of Bedard, because obviously the jury still had its first year. Outside of guys like that, Hughes, Pettersson, I mentioned, I'm not even sure he's the next tier down of overall, like first overall picks, like John Tavares. Like even John Tavares was, hit 80 plus a couple of times. Did he get 90? He might have gotten 89 or 90 in his first year in Toronto. I don't see Lafreniere in that level either. I mean, I don't think he's gonna score 80 points, 90 points. I think. I mean, what I see a 60 to 70 point guy, and that's not bad. That's
It's
not
not
bad.
bad
I mean,
at
I think anybody would take a 60 to 70 point player on your team. But I don't even think he's John Tavares point production. And I'm not, listen, you could cherry pick stats. I'm not talking about 5-on-5. I'm talking about point totals at the end of a year. I don't I don't know. Like I said, John Tavares has had years where he's had 80 points, close to 90 points. I don't think, and I could be wrong. I'll be gladly to admit I'm wrong. I've done it before. I don't think Lafreniere is going to reach that level, 80, 90 points. I think he's going to settle in between a 65 and 70 point player in a few years, maybe. I don't even think he's John Tavares. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, but also let's also not kid ourselves. He's playing on a team where he's not going to be the focal point of the team at any point. There's Kreider, there's Zibanejad, there's Panarin, there's Vinny Trocheck, who came in the middle of his career and is more of a focal point of the team than Alexei Lafreniere. Now, and I'm not saying all these are bad things or good things or whatever. I'm saying that's what does hinder improvement. What other teams would draft a first and a second overall player in back-to-back years, and they're not the focal points of their franchise? I'm not even sure if they're in the 7 and 8 category of the focal points of their franchise. Because for the Rangers, you had Shesterkin coming in to replace Lundqvist. So there's one. Then you have, again, as Kris T saying right here, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Kane, Taves, Malkin, Crosby is going down the list. They were all amazing at 22. Stop this now. But again, Kris, all those players you just mentioned in there, and we could bring it up again if we wanted to, but let's just say all those players that you mentioned right in there, they were all brought in to be the number 1 center, the number 2 guy. Lafreniere's been a number 3 guy, and even his natural position is left wing. So he's got to learn a brand new position, which you get some of us that play NHL 2000 or whatever number you want to say it is. I forgot what year we're on. I'm sorry. I'm old. I can't help that. But it's
Mark,
it's a lot harder to switch wings.
You were right. You were right. And what David is kind of reaffirming the point that you're making. But now I go back to this and ask you, if you put I'm just going to pick a player. If you put Elias Pettersson on the third line, what do you think would happen? He's insanely skilled. He most likely would have showed that he deserves to be moved up with his play, and he would have. It's kind of a circle that we just keep going back to. If Lafreniere was as skilled as the other guys, despite playing on the third line, his play would have dictated him being moved up to the first line, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the part that is missing inside of his game. He's not.
All right. Glad you said that.
Those guys.
Because Anthony, let's keep that circle going a little bit. When you look up and you know you're not going to make it there because they're playing some half-wit like Ryan Strome on the top power play unit. Yes, they did. And you're going, all right, well, am I ever going to get a shot at this? Or Colin Blackwell was on power play 2. There are some of these things. It then kills your confidence. And once your confidence is shot, it doesn't matter anything else. That's what's so big about the reason why Kakko is now being talked about with the New York Rangers, because he was just on a 5-game point scoring streak, because you need your confidence. If you don't have your confidence in doing anything, you're completely lost. And no matter how good of a player you think you are, if you think everybody else perceives you as garbage, it doesn't matter. You could be Wayne Gretzky. You could be Pavel Datsyuk. You're not going to do anything.
I mentioned Tavares before, and now I recognize obviously when he was. I know when he was drafted, he was obviously the Islanders' number 1 center right away. But the point I'm going to make here is Tavares' skating, Mark, was dreadful in his first year, and
Correct.
the Islanders were an abomination of talent. I mean, you took a guy like Matt Molson, who was a nobody, turned him into a 30-goal scorer that first year. But Tavares, despite all that, being a terrible skater in his first year and having no talent around him, he had 54 points in his rookie year. Now, 54 points in your rookie year, despite getting, I know, top line minutes, he still scored 54 points in his first year, and he was a terrible skater and had no talent around him. Like that, I don't know if that's what I'm saying. I don't even know if Lafreniere is John Tavares. I think he's more Nico Hischier, and even honestly, even Nico Hischier
Scored 80 points
more
in last
success.
season.
Yeah, had more success early in his career, but I don't know.
Well, going back to this is the difference between Nico Hischier and every other player that we've talked about. How many number one overall draft picks have to look at their coach to be like, am I going out next shift? Or is it going to be somebody else? And before everybody says, oh, it's Lafreniere. And by the way, yes. And look, Kris T, you're right about this. And I know he's cherry picking this because you're backing up his point. I have no problem with this. Both can be right at the same time. Anthony's got the numbers.
Yeah.
And the numbers are backing up Anthony's point. But what I'm trying to say with this is when you don't know your role, you have to look to the coach and go, well, what am I doing? That's a huge problem. And now if I say that for a number one overall draft pick, that's a tremendous problem. The Rangers needed to have a plan. They needed to have a plan for all these guys. And it seemed like there was a plan in place for Kakko, and then David Quinn decided to blow it up because of a bad penalty. People forget this about Kaapo Kakko. Kaapo Kakko had, I believe, 7 goals in his first month and a half as a New York Ranger. And was he bad defensively? Oh, God, he was atrocious. But on the other hand, he takes a bad penalty in Calgary, sees the pine, and then he never gets power play time almost the rest of his career under David Quinn.
No.
So when you got somebody, and we can say it, by the way, guys, before Anthony replies, I got to say this. We can say this in our own lines. If your boss has no confidence in you, it affects your work. That's simple. Go ahead, Anthony.
Oddly enough, I don't know if you saw it. It came out on Amazon Prime in Canada a couple weeks ago, but it was a documentary about Alexander Daig.
I've been looking for it. I can't find it.
It's because in the US, it's available on ESPN Plus. But I watched it, and it was actually a good watch. Daig was billed as the second coming of Lemieux, and and I think everyone, if you bring up Alexander Daig, their first thought is going to say bust. Despite that, in his first year, his rookie season, he had 20 goals and 51 points. And then in his career went on to have 50 points a couple more times, but is considered a bust by and large. So, you have a guy here in Alexander Daig is probably viewed as one of the biggest busts of all time, and had 51 points in his rookie year on an Ottawa Senators team that lost like 70 games. So, and I know it's apples to oranges, but Daig in his first year had 50 points in the league, and Lafreniere here he is in his fourth and is just struggling to break 50. It's just an interesting correlation.
I don't want to say a more offensive era, because the 93 was offense beyond the charts. It went from 93 where you had, Phil could tell us, I think I want to say 10 100-point scorers to 94 where there was none. And it was like that for a while, except for Mario and Yager in the 90s. I know that off the top of my head. But I'm just doing this off the top of my head, guys. Sorry. Now, but Daig was brought in to be the superstar on an expansion team. Fans are perceiving that Lafreniere is the number one overall draft pick and should be this. The team did not use him as that. There was never any point where the New York Rangers made him the focal point of their team, did anything. And not saying whether or not he'd be successful. And I'll check that. Daig also said how unmotivated he was and how much he didn't want to play hockey. I didn't get that impression from Laf. You know what? At the beginning of the year, we were talking about this with Lafreniere, if you remember, Anthony. We were talking about in the preseason, He went one-on-one against the Bruins goalie. I forget his name in the preseason, and the guy stood the task and got him. And Kakko's the one that looked like he was taking the next step. That being said, Lafreniere looks better right now. Lafreniere looks like he is taking that step. Now, is he going to be a superstar? Of course not. We're not saying that yet. Nobody is. He's not gonna. We're not writing his speech to go into the hall into Toronto. It's not. It's just not there yet. But is he better? So JE, I repeat what I said before. Is he breaking out? The short answer is yes, he is. The long answer is not really, because if you watch his play, he looks like a better player. The numbers do not dictate it. And I could take the Anthony stance and say the Bill Parcells line. The record is who it says you are. Not on. There's no points for moral victories. On the other hand, this looks like a kid that's starting to figure it out. And take, for instance, for the New York Rangers, every Ranger fan wants to bring this up, Anthony, that, oh, look at JT Miller now. JT Miller has been out of the organization since 2018. He had to be moved out of Tampa Bay, and his second season or third season of Vancouver, that's when he got to 100 points. Oh, no, they shouldn't have given up on JT Miller. It only took 10 years for him to figure it out.
There's been a lot of talk about Trevor Zegras. For instance, would you trade Lafreniere for Zegras?
Oof. And by the way, I got to go with Pop and Suck saying cannot give up on Laffy just yet. Would I trade Trevor Zegras for Lafreniere? There's a couple of factors that go into it. Let's take away Filip Chytil. Filip Chytil is healthy next year, which I don't think he ever will be ever again. So that's one factor. I'm not saying that as a bad as anything. I'm just saying it is. Do the Rangers need more help at wings? I'm going to say right now the Rangers need Lafreniere as a wing more than they need Zegras as a center. And also, I'm not convinced Trevor Zegras cares about anything but stardom. I can tell you this. Lafreniere wants to win a Stanley Cup. That's in him. I've seen it with the way he's talked about his role on the Rangers and the way he's played. Now, I think Zegras is more on the stardom right now. I don't think Zegras is ready for that yet. And you guys tell me in the comments, am I wrong?
I'm surprised. I'm surprised so many people are saying no. I mean, Zegras 61 points 2 years ago, 65 points this year. So already much better production than Lafreniere. So I'm curious as to the reason why there are so many no's here.
I will bite on that one right now, and let me bite on that as well. Lafreniere this season, he's averaging 17 minutes, 19 seconds worth of ice time. In his career before this, and this is averaging in last season, 15 minutes and 2 seconds. Let me actually go to the standard numbers right now. His first season to last, so I'm going to take that out. 14 minutes, 25 seconds average ice time of usage. The hell was that? Trevor Zegras, on the other hand, thus far, 17 minutes worth of usage. Because Trevor Zegras is in a situation where he doesn't have to turn around and wonder whether or not his coach is playing him. I keep going back to this. It's what roles happen. It's stuff that happens with this. Now, is he a bust in your eyes? Yes. But I'm saying circumstances are there. And I'm telling you, if the Rangers moved on from him, they would regret it tomorrow.
I think Zegras is the more talented player. But, I mean, like Rob Schremp was super talented and never stuck. I'm not saying that. I don't think that's the case with Zegras because, like I said, Zegras already has 2 60-plus point seasons. But I think it's a trade that Anaheim would say no to as well, though. So I guess at the end of the day, it wouldn't really matter. I think Anaheim would decline as well, but
Yeah.
I think Zegras.
Although now that they
is
got
the
Cutter
like.
Gauthier, you think they would turn that down?
Yeah, I think they're going to turn because again, Zegras is already a 60-point player. Why would they move him for a guy who's who's struggling just to reach 50 right now? So I don't think Anaheim would go for it.
By the
I
way,
don't.
David brought up these two names. It's obvious two ones that everybody thinks about. First, overall bust, Stefan and Yakupov. But I'll throw out there Eric Johnson. Eric Johnson wasn't exactly much for the St. Louis Blues. And then they traded him and got back. Was it Stewart? I can remember who they got. I think it was Chris Stewart. So they got back. And there was nothing that came from that. By the way, JD orchestrated that move. I'm fairly certain of that one. This is without me doing my research at the moment, guys. So, Mr. Fantastic is saying, here's the question. Who, if people think Loff is a bust, who should they have taken? By the way, that's not the issue. That's actually not the issue because I still think they weren't taking Byfield. They weren't, even though there was a need at center, they were not taking Byfield. All the reports said Lafreniere a bust, Lafreniere a bust. They were not going down to Stützle. And every Ranger fan that wants to say, oh, they should have taken Stützle. Nope. No. Wasn't happening. Kris, I'm going to answer that question when and by the way, John Radigan's saying it like this. To move off of both players is the wrong move. That's right. The backhanded roofer the other night showed that he has some midichlorians. I love that in his blood. Speaking about which, Mr. Fantastic, man, Star Wars, I really wish they could figure it out. That Ray movie ain't looking like pretty good. I would love to know where all the no's are right here. By the way, Anthony, before we close out this question, any news on Cizikas' injury?
No, he was said to be being reevaluated today, so I guess we'll probably hear something tomorrow before the Islanders game against Tampa Bay.
And again, by the way, I think a lot of the problem is you're going to get, no matter who you get, the Rangers got Trevor Zegras tomorrow, Anthony. He's not even on the top power play unit. Like they wouldn't do that because that's not the way they're not going to usurp Zibanejad, and they're not going to get rid of Trocheck on there. And Phil and I, we've argued about this for a while, so it's part of the problems that they have. They got Shattenkirk for him. Yeah, okay, yeah. Blues got Shatty and Stewart. Thank you very much. I thought it was Stewart. Chris, I think it was Chris Stewart that they got and Shattenkirk. Well, they ended up getting Shattenkirk, the pick that became Shattenkirk, if I recall correctly. As much as I have Kreider, his presence has stunted Lafreniere's development. Yeah, but again, I think also, Anthony, this is where we're at. You're going with results. I'm going with opportunity. And if he was a right wing, might have been a different story. But he's not. He's left wing. And that was no, I think it was still Stewart. Anthony, by the way, while you walked away, I said Eric Johnson, what the picks when people talk about first overall picks.
Yeah. You said you go more so with the opportunity, but again, I counter with that is then he's playing with Artemi Panarin now, and he still only has 35 points. Like that, don't you see? Like if he was truly as skilled as many people thought, he had more than 35 points. Like Mark, I'll ask you this question: if Matt Barzal played on the top line with Artemi Panarin, would Matt Barzal have 35 points?
No, Matt Barzal would have more.
Now
again, that has to do with
point.
But again, that's all right. Let me ask you this: you leave the Spitfires and go to a different team. They have never seen you play.
Yeah.
Are you on the top line tomorrow? No, they're gonna play their guys.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. That's where the hard part is. And I think that's the problem when you have these two kids that were drafted into an organization where things were entrenched. Anthony, do you really have food in the microwave?
Yeah, it was done. I was taking out. I'm gonna run in like 2 minutes.
No, we're both gonna run. It's all right. By the way, everybody, spirited discussion. 42 of you is still with us right now. And again, as Mr. Statistic is right here saying, they need a right wing. They can't play VZ on the top line. Buchnevich would have been perfect. And look, if I knew that this was going to be what the end line was, I would have said keep Buchnevich. But instead, even I looked at it and went, the way you win Stanley Cups is to have cap space and younger players. And the Rangers had that. Instead, they never invested in these two players. And whether or not they're good or not, we'll find out maybe on their next teams that they're on. And for Ranger fans, it's going to be horrifying. But it's certainly something I would look at and think the jury's still out, even though I'm closer to your side, Anthony. I know you want me to say it. I'm saying I'm closer to your side. I'm leaning more towards Loft being a bust, but I still think Loft has plenty of time.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Mark. I don't think Mark knows that he can't hear, fellas. That he can't. I mean, I think now he's aware. Even though Big Lou's general manager of the Islanders, he got pissed off and muted Mark. He's censoring you, Mark.
How is he going into StreamYard and doing that? I have no idea.
Yeah, he's Big Lou. These are the type of things he does.
Yeah. By the way, thank you guys.
But I really wish I got to talk to him when I saw him, because I was going to go up to him and I was going to introduce myself. I don't know if I would have mentioned Mark Williams. I could joke around and say I would have right now, but I was certainly going to talk to Lou, but unfortunately didn't get the opportunity to.
Guy's the greatest mind in American hockey history when you count the amount of Americans he put on the Stanley Cup. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I can name 3 off the top of my head, and he's been doing this since he was director of Providence. So and the guy ran an organization the way it should be run. So
it's good. I might be sleeping with the fishes. I know. I only would have been sleeping with the fishes if when I went up to him, I said, "Hey, Lou, go out and acquire Frank Vetrano." Then I probably would have been sleeping with the fishes. That's for sure.
Oh, he would have given you that stare.
Yeah, he would have.
Right there.
Remember the video last year where someone saw him in the Islander game and he was yelling at him, "Hey, Lou, get Bo Horvat," and then like a week later he got him. You had edited that video. Happened that was that guy. I don't know if that guy was ever heard from again.
I'm not sure if he ever was. And the stare he gave.
Yeah. That was the best
Anthony,
part
the stare that he gave him was like this.
Yeah.
It was just, dude, I'm working on it. Shut up. You talking about this isn't going to help me. All right, guys, we are going to sign off right now. I got bye-bye playing. Oh, wow. Anthony out there like that. This is, as you guys know, this is a song from my cousin Phil, who passed away in 2011. Prostate cancer. Make sure you're always getting it checked. One more time, guys, I just want to say this. The show is dedicated to Bob Williams. Dad, I'll be saying my goodbye to you in about 2 weeks in Arizona. One more time, the picture of him right there. just guys, always make sure you're telling your father you love him, and it sucks. I am happy that I have had a wonderful fiance that's been right by me the last 2 days and dealt with me in the worst moments, and also I'm blessed to have friends that I was able to hang around with. I'm going to see a few more probably in a few hours. Look, today I felt a lot better than I have the last couple days, and I'm a very, very, very lucky man. I have all you guys to talk about hockey with, and that's what matters. So, all right. We got, so I should use sign language. Wait, all right. But guys, good show. Thank you. And Justin, thank you for joining us. By the way, Esa Tikkanen, you had it on there. He was acquired at the 93 deadline for Doug Waite. So that was it. And again, guys, thank you, everybody. It's been a long week. Mike, thank you. By the way, you should contact Mike, who does life insurance policies. So you should always, you need something, go to him. I can always give you his information in case if anybody's interested. But guys, it is, I'll do a shot for him again later. I did one for him before. Guys, thank you very much, everybody. It's still a long way to go. A lot to talk about with the trade deadline in 2 weeks. And like I said, I'll be seeing you guys in Arizona, probably on the weekly show right before the trade deadline. So there is going to be a lot we are going to be talking about. So stay with us right now, and I will bid you all adieu.